Welcome back, it's me, Lou. Today we're going to jump into the time machine and travel way, way back as we look at these older G.I. Joe Extreme action figures. So this trio of action figures I purchased recently at one of my favorite collectible toy stores, and that's Wax Packs, Records, and Toys, located in beautiful Roselle, Illinois. If you happen to be in the Chicagoland area, I highly suggest you check this place out. Alright, so let's get started. So, when I was at Wax Packs, I was like digging through their bin of loose action figures, and I came across these figures. I'm very, very fond of the old G.I. Joe Extreme figures. I believe that these were made in the late 90s. I think they're dated 1995. So, at the shop, there's a couple of bins of loose action figures. And it's what you kind of expect, there's a whole bunch of mix of like old like Playmates, like Star Trek figures, some old Toy Biz from like the X-Men and Spider-Man and Marvel lines, some old Kenner Batmans, and all the figures are usually beat up, they're missing their accessories, sometimes they're broken, but every now and then you'll find a figure where they just look, not that they're pristine, but they're nice, these guys are missing most of their accessories, but they're not beat up too bad, and they're not really broken or scuffed up. So the figures we have here that I was lucky to find, we have Lieutenant Stone on our left. We have Ballistic in the middle. And then we have the Ironclaw on the right. So if you're not familiar with G.I. Joe Extreme, it's a much different take on G.I. Joe. During the 90s, if you grew up in the 90s, everything had to be extreme. There was the Extreme Games, Extreme X-Men. And G.I. Joe, they kind of tried revamping it. And they got rid of Real American Hero. And instead they gave us G.I. Joe Extreme. Cobra was gone. Cobra Commander was replaced by Ironclaw and his terrorist organization. The Joes, as we knew it, were gone also. So instead of like Duke, we had Lieutenant Stone. And I always kind of felt like his name was a play on the old DC character, Sergeant Rock. And yeah, these are great figures. Let's take a look at each one individually. Let's start with Lieutenant Stone first. So this guy's missing his accessories. He does have his removable body armor. So you can take his body armor off. And you're just left with this. It's a decent sculpt. For the 90s, it kind of fell in line with Kenner's other action figures. Like their Aliens and their Predator figures. Some of their Batman figures were kind of sculpted in a very similar design. The articulation is very limited. You're looking at probably 5 points of articulation with the head, the arms, and the legs. And I do have another Lieutenant Stone figure on hand we could compare him to. So for me, this is the much more iconic version of the figure, or the character. This came in a 2-pack with Ironclaw. And I believe in one of my videos a couple of months back, I actually looked at the G.I. Joe Extreme 2-pack that had this figure. So go check that out if you haven't seen it already. So yeah, there's two different versions of Lieutenant Stone. This one, the sculpt's a little bit more premium. The details are a lot more sharper. It's unfortunate that he's very much sculpted in this very... it's very monoposed. You can't really do a lot with this. He does have some articulation, like he could rotate at the waist and at the head and the arms. But that's pretty much it. This figure is really much more of a display piece than something to be played with. So I always kind of felt like, the 2-pack was aimed at the collector who wanted a nice desk toy to display at the office. Versus the single carded figures, which felt like they're much more, child friendly. And these really felt like these were much more meant to be played with. So yeah, we have two different versions of Lieutenant Stone. All right, let's set him aside and let's take a look at Ballistic. Uh, I was very fortunate that I got this figure, and he still functions. He still has his gimmick. So the deal with this guy is, you press his legs together, and he does that. Now, I gotta admit, like after I bought this guy, I probably lost 10 minutes of my life just hanging out and just like playing with this, because it's just there's just something that's so cool and novel about that. Here he is. He's ready to go. I would love it if this is like this kind of play feature. Like I get it. Like older collectors, they're not into this kind of stuff. This is something that's much more aimed at children. Nowadays collectors, they're all about like accessories and multiple points of articulation. But for me, I just love toys that feel like toys, and I just really dig that play feature. It's just so cool that 1 minute he looks like this, he pulls legs together, and that's just so awesome. I would love it if I had a RoboCop figure that did this, or like even a Punisher figure. And this is such a fun sculpt. This is a real reflection of this time period. The design is very comic book like. During the late 80s and early 90s, for comic book characters, especially like, for example, the X-Men character Cable. He had the big shoulder pads. He had all these excessive like harnesses and straps all over him with bullets and like grenades everywhere. And this ballistic figure, much like his name, it takes after that. He has all the ballistics and all the weaponry he needs. And it's just so fun. I mean, I can't get enough of this. I'd love it if I had a Han Solo figure that did this. I'd love it if I had a RoboCop figure. The quick draw action is so awesome. Yeah, so that's cool. I love this figure. I was so happy that I found this guy, and he was in such decent shape. He's not beat up too bad, and for me to have his play feature still functioning is a bonus. All right, lastly, we're going to look at Ironclaw, the evil terrorist leader. Nice sculpt. He has his beret, he has his skull mask, he has his studded shoulder pad, his leather bracers. For me, this guy looks a lot more menacing than Cobra Commander. They did try bringing back some of these characters in the IDW comic books. So maybe like 5 years ago, if not longer, IDW was running this huge crossover event with all of their Marvel properties. Transformers, G.I. Joe, Mask, ROM. And they actually brought back some of the G.I. Joe Extreme characters, much to my delight. Yeah, so here's Ironclaw, and I do have another version of him. And much like Lieutenant Stone, this one came in the 2-pack. And as you can see, it's a much more premium action figure. He's very monoposed, so this is, even though he has some points of articulation, he's really just meant to be much more of a display piece than something to be played with. Let me get him to focus. So as you can see, two different interpretations of the character. This one has the crazy like long cape, which I think is amazing. He has his like swashbuckling sword, a much more detailed head sculpt than the solo carded figure. And the light's kind of like, it's hard to see the details on his face because the light's like blowing out the details since it's all white. But it's a fantastic figure. Even the texture on his collar and his cape is outstanding. I love this figure so much. Like for me, even though this isn't G.I. Joe, a real American hero, there's just something about G.I. Joe Extreme that really takes me back. The cartoon was really fun, and I've said this before, if you've never seen the intro to G.I. Joe Extreme, hunt it down on YouTube. It's worth checking out. It's really fun. So yeah, here's some G.I. Joe Extreme action figures. Very, very stoked to have these figures added to my collection. Every now and then I get the bug to search these out on eBay, but you know, for me, I don't want to start collecting another line of toys. I already have too many as it is, and you know, as long as I have this a handful, I'm pretty just happy with these. You know, I can't really complain. These are awesome, awesome figures. All right, so let's wrap this video up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a returning subscriber or viewer, thank you so much for your support. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.